Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
Welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. But for our radio audience here in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com, we're glad that you all could be with us. Also, tuning in to our friends at iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcast. We're glad you all could be with us as well. This is part of our News You Can Use segment here at WYAD, and we've talked a lot on this broadcast about COVID and the impact it can have. But up to 30% of COVID patients develop something called LongCovid, which can be a serious, debilitating health problem. Here to talk to us more, not only about what LongCovid is, we're excited to welcome Dr. Peter Rowe. He's also going to talk to us about an initiative that's going on called Solve LongCovid. And also we have joining us today Cynthia Adinig. She's going to talk to us about her own experience with LongCovid as well. Thanks to the two of you for the time. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we hear a lot about COVID, Dr. Rowe. So what exactly is LongCovid?
LongCovid is a term that we use to describe persistent symptoms after an initial acute COVID infection. And it can be not just a severe infection, but that you can get these persistent symptoms after a relatively mild initial infection. And people can get a range of problems from respiratory difficulties, congestion, shortness of breath, high heart rates, low blood pressure. And among the symptoms that are most debilitating are the degree of exhaustion and fatigue. People can get something called post-exertional malaise, where after trying to do something that they've taken for granted in the past, like a short walk, they can be really much more symptomatic. Patients can have lots of difficulty with concentration, memory, processing, and a variety of other symptoms throughout the body that are in the wake of COVID. So the definition the CDC uses is that long COVID is anything beyond 1 month after the onset of illness. The World Health Organization says it's anything beyond 3 months. But many patients, 2.5 years later, are still housebound and impaired and disabled, unable to work or continue their education. So this is a very serious condition that is no joke, and you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy.
Yeah. Cynthia, that's why I'm so glad that we appreciate you sharing your story with us. Tell us about your experience with LongCovid.
My experience with LongCovid began in March 2020, where I got a very mild COVID infection, basically sniffles for 2 days, and then I felt better. But as weeks went on, I developed terrifying life-threatening illnesses from LongCovid, some of which are extremely high heart rates, dangerously low oxygen, and crippling fatigue to where I couldn't even brush my own hair or put on my shoes. And I also developed a severe symptom of having an allergic-type reaction to a wide range of food and even water, and that contributed to me losing full mobility and needing a wheelchair for several months as I suffered from those severe life-threatening illnesses. And even today, I am mostly homebound, and 2.5 years into it, I need a slew of medications just to eat every day.
Oh, incredible. I appreciate you sharing that with us, Cynthia. Dr. Rowe, I want to ask you then, as you talk about what LongCovid is and the symptoms, can anyone get it? Is there a certain group that seems to be getting it more?
So it is something that anyone can be affected by. It may be a bit more common in those who have pre-existing health problems, just as they are at greater risk for worse outcomes with the acute infection. But people with diabetes and obesity, women seem to be more affected than men, but we don't understand yet all of the risk factors for developing LongCovid, and so that remains an area of ongoing research interest.
Are there any treatments at this I'm sorry,
I was just going to say that you can even get it after you've been vaccinated. So it's important that although vaccines are protective against getting long COVID, you can still have breakthrough infections that lead to long COVID.
I'm sorry, I was just going to ask you, I mean, with that being the case, I mean, is it something that anyone can be impacted by? Are there any treatment or cures that are available for our audience out there?
So unfortunately, no cures at this point, but that's an area of ongoing research interest around the world. People are looking to try to understand the mechanism by which the virus leads to these long-term symptoms and then find something to intervene that's effective. We aren't there yet, but that doesn't mean there's nothing to be done. As Cynthia can tell you, a lot of the medicines she's on have helped reduce the severity and the impact of her symptoms. And as an example, if you've got post-COVID migraines, we've got lots of good medications, including a lot of new ones in the last few years that are very effective for treating that symptom. We've got good medicines for raising blood pressure or lowering the heart rate if those are problems with the circulation. And we've got things that can be helpful for sleep and pain and even low mood when that occurs secondary to the interference with normal function. So lots of things can be done. Big challenge is where are people going to get access to that kind of care, because we were unprepared when the pandemic started. We didn't really have very many clinics around the country that dealt with post-viral infectious illnesses like this.
So, Dr. Rowe, then I mentioned in my introduction about this initiative, the Solve LongCovid initiative. What is that exactly, and what is it hoping to do when it comes to helping LongCovid sufferers?
Yeah, so Solve is a nonprofit that's been active dealing with problems following infection for patients for over 30 years, and they have a very good website, solvelongcovid.org, that has information about the illness itself, symptoms, how to be more engaged with the problem, either by being part of a biobank where you donate specimens or you participate in a registry, and they're also working on providing funding for new researchers in the field. So lots of very useful information, and people can learn how they might be able to contribute to the effort as well.
All right, again, that website was solvelongcovid.org. We'll make sure that we link that up for our audience. Cynthia, you also have become an advocate for those dealing with long COVID. Where can our audience go to find out more information about long COVID?
Yes, solvelongcovid.org has really helped me. The Solve Long COVID initiative really put me into connected me with patients that had experienced post-viral illness for decades, and it helped me in my recovery when I didn't have access to knowledgeable doctors. I really thank you so much for highlighting this and having us on here, and thanks for helping us shed awareness for Solve.
It's definitely important here in my home state of Mississippi. We've definitely had several cases we profiled here of long COVID sufferers, so we're glad you all could be with us. Again, everyone, Dr. Peter Rowe, as well as Cynthia Adinig, have been talking with us about long COVID, those who are suffering with it, but also the initiative Solve Long COVID and what it's hoping to be able to do to raise awareness. Thanks to the two of you for the work that you're doing as well. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Now let's go make today amazing. Take care.